I think that in this country, we have a terrible relationship with money. I don't think we understand money. I think that we have a weird cognitive dissonance going on in our head. On one hand, we can't wait to go get the money. We understand the figures, the larger the better. But on the other hand, we can't wait to go out and spend it and get rid of it. So we have a terrible relationship with money. And as Americans, you would think that as much importance as we place on money, we'd understand what it is as a whole and how to go get it, but yet we don't. I don't think we do. So first and foremost, we understand that money can't buy happiness. It's not the most important thing. It can't buy happiness. It can't buy friends. It can't buy real, true relationships or real, true experiences that you can only experience through connections with other humans. We know that. But money is very important. Money should be up there with God, family, health, and then there's money. Top 4, top 5, maybe even top 3. Because what money is essentially an exchange for our time in our life. So in this society, we've agreed that we're no longer going to hunt, that we're no longer going to fish and farm, and we're going to specialize in one thing, and then we're going to exchange that one thing or service for money, just so we can exchange it for those things that we need. Clothing, a roof over your heads, transportation, seed, food, etc. So whether you like money or not, understand that it's here to stay. And whether it's on a little piece of paper or it's digital, it's not going anywhere. So understand that we're in a capitalistic world and a capitalistic society that has agreed that money has some importance. And that money that you get paid is essentially the value you bring to this world. So first and foremost, just to understand money, know that money is an exchange for your time. So in exchange for your life, essentially, because you go and spend 40, 50, 60 hours at work just to get money, and you don't think about it twice. When you give away those hours and that time, your life is finite. You're going to live to maybe 70, maybe 80 years old. But money is infinite, so you can get as much as you want. So every time you go to work, I want you to think about this. When you go to work, you're exchanging your time, therefore your life, for that money. What value are you going to give yourself? What are you going to demand from yourself? And that salary and that money that you make is directly proportional to the value you bring to the world. So know that it isn't just a salary, and it shouldn't be just making it. If you really believe in your talents, and if you really believe in the value you bring to society, and you make an effort to specialize yourself and to separate yourself from the crowd, then you should be making more money. So as an exchange for your life. So if you think about it like that, I think that you'll understand money just a bit better. So if it's an exchange for your time, therefore your life, then you need to make sure that you're transacting at the highest value possible. So how do you do that? How do you get the most amount of money for what you do? Because you should. Because I know I value my life, and I know that I'm going to live 70 to 80 years old, and I'm giving you all this time. So if I'm going to give you all this time, you better give me the most amount of money for it so I can have and provide my family with the best comfort, the best food, the best everything. Because that's what's important, in a way. So you need to make sure that you're transacting high. So how do you transact high? So then that's the question. So money is important. It's not going away. Money is simply an exchange for your time, therefore your life. So I have to make sure that I transact super high. How do I get the most amount of money for my time? Now I understand that there's jobs that need to be done. There's a plumber that has to work. There's a carpenter that has to build. There's a grocery bagger that has to bag. But hopefully these jobs are transient, and there is a stepping stone to the next job where you're creating your value and you're moving on to a higher number where you're transacting for your time. So how do you transact high? I think that one of the things that a lot of people don't think about is changing the way you think about money and figures. I think that everybody has a certain level of understanding about money. Just like everyone has a certain level of understanding of, say, football, basketball, mathematics, chemistry, whatever it is, you have a certain level of understanding. And I think it's the same thing with money. is sort of like a coefficient. You only grasp what you can understand. They asked a bunch of urban kids if they could have all the money in the world, what would they want? They said $1 million. They all said $1 million, like 90% of them. They didn't say $1 billion. They didn't say $6 billion. They said $1 million because that was their coefficient. That's what they saw. That was their level of understanding of money. So if you want to transact high and exchange that time for money at the highest possible rate, then you need to change the way you think about money and what you understand. And the only way you change that coefficient, the only way you change the understanding of money is by getting a different perspective, by getting outside the norm and outside of the people you're with now and dealing with people that make a lot more money, because it's all perspective. And the more exposure you have to larger figures, the more your perspective changes. That's why $100,000 for a teacher is a lot of money, but $100,000 for an investment banker is a starting salary. Now, an investment banker wants to make $1 million or $2 or $3 or $4 a year. And the teacher's happy making $140,000 as a superintendent. Why? It's all perspective. So changing that coefficient, changing that perspective and that level of understanding of money. And we don't think we have this limitation. That's the thing, that it's really hard to see. But we can't step away from ourselves and understand that we have this thing that's tying us down, this mental ceiling that we designed for ourselves. And it's only limited by our perspective and our exposure to different figures. So changing that coefficient and changing the way you think about money, what's a little, what's a lot, raising that. And when you raise it, you can transact higher. So how do you transact high? Change the coefficient. Change the way you think about money and what you understand and what you see as high and what you see as low. And then, of course, the second thing is bringing value to society. How do you bring value to society? You can't expect to earn more money than the next person if you're only willing to do the things that the next person's doing. In order for you to bring more value to the world, to society, to capitalism, etc., the only way you do that is by doing what others aren't willing to do. If you want to earn above the 1%, if you want to be in the 1% of Americans, how do you do that? You have to be willing to do the things that 1% of Americans is willing to do and that the other 99 are not willing to do. And what are those things? It depends on your field. But it starts with building yourself, building knowledge, self-education, discipline, drive, doing the things even when you don't want to do them. That's how you bring value. That's how you exceed value. And that's how you raise how high you transact. So guys, money isn't going anywhere. It's still here. We're still exchanging it. Now, if we go through this apocalypse and it wipes out 90% of the population, we're going to go back to the natural world. We're going to have arrows and we're going to be hunting for deer and drying meat to preserve it and living in little huts. But until that happens, money is very real and it's here to stay. So when you go to that job, I want you to think, is this job exchanging my time for the right money? Am I transacting as high as I want? And if the answer is no, for a lot of you, I'm guessing it's going to be no. Then I need to make sure that I'm transacting high by changing my coefficient of money. How do I think about money? What's high, what's low? How do I increase it? How do I change it? Where do I get perspective? And how do I bring more value than my counterparts? How do I bring more value than my colleagues? And that starts by looking at yourself, inwardly exploring. Am I doing the things that others aren't willing to do? If I want to earn in the 1%, am I doing the things that the other 99% isn't doing? I hope this gives you some perspective and it helps you understand a little bit more about how money works. And I really hope you go and transact high and get your money. Thank you so much for listening.